Before we get into the 15 elements of the Dublin Core metadata element set, I want to talk about what Dublin Core is for, what it was designed to accomplish. And the Dublin Core community has articulated these 4 very high-level goals. The first of which we've already talked about, simplicity, right? Dublin Core was designed to be very simple to use, to have a low cost of adoption so that it would be very widely used, right? The idea is that it should be simple to create metadata for an object, and it should be simple to use Dublin Core metadata and metadata records when you're creating new tools, new search tools, new discovery tools, any new technology that might make use of metadata. It should be easy on the design side to make use of Dublin Core metadata. So this simplicity for Dublin Core is both on the side of creating metadata records for resources and for making use of those metadata records in any new tool or technology that's being designed. Going along with the simplicity is a commonly understood semantics. The world is a big place, right? The same word can mean different things to different people under different contexts, etc. A really simple and kind of silly example is the word table, which means one thing if you're talking about, furniture, and means quite another if you're talking about presenting research findings, where usually what you're talking about is data being presented in a table, like a spreadsheet layout, right? That's kind of a silly example. Another example is the word library. The word library means something very different to a librarian and to a computer scientist. Dublin Core was deliberately designed to avoid this problem of different semantics by being very general. Now, an example of this is someone who creates a book is called an author, right? Someone who creates a film is called a filmmaker. Someone who creates a painting is called a painter. Right? So you have all of these different names for different kinds of individuals who engage in different kinds of creation. Dublin Core doesn't care. Dublin Core calls all of those individuals creator, right? Dublin Core flattens out the semantics of different kinds of creation for different kinds of resources and just calls everyone creator. The risk of that, of course, is that you lose specificity, right? An author is not the same thing as a filmmaker, is not the same thing as a painter, etc., right? But what Dublin Core gains is usability, because it doesn't matter what kind of creation you're engaging in, what kind of resource you're creating, everyone's just called creator. One term. Easy. The corollary to that is that under certain conditions you're going to need to add back specificity. And so Dublin Core has mechanisms by which you can extend the metadata elements that you can use for particular use cases or to describe particular kinds of resources, right? If you need to be able to specify filmmaker versus painter, there should be a way of extending Dublin Core to make that possible. And the last piece is international scope. Now, Dublin Core was developed in English originally, and a lot of development of Dublin Core still happens in English. But to make a metadata schema for the web truly universal, as it should be for the web, it has to be translated into multiple languages, and there are working groups that do that translation. So the overarching goals of Dublin Core are designed to make it universally applicable, right? Translation across languages. Simplicity, right? Very simple set of metadata elements, only 15, bear in mind, not, the 100 million that might exist if you had a term for every different kind of creator in the world, right? So very simple, shared semantics, but with the option to extend those semantics as needed. In the next video, we'll get into depth in the 15 metadata elements of Dublin Core, and then we'll talk about how to create metadata records using those elements. But broadly, those metadata records have a few characteristics. And the first is that all elements are optional, right? In the previous unit, we talked about music that may not have a subject, other art forms that may not be about something, strictly speaking. So if you don't have a subject for a resource, you just leave the subject element out. You just don't use it. And the flip side of that is that all elements are repeatable, right? If you're describing a film, films are made by entire teams of people. If you're describing a book of short stories, there are going to be multiple authors. You just repeat the creator element as many times as you need. And in the interest of simplicity, elements can be displayed in any order. Often you see the 15 elements of Dublin Core displayed alphabetically, but that's just arbitrary. It should be easy to apply Dublin Core metadata, so you can create your records with your elements in any order you like, right? Simplicity. Now let's get into the 15 elements of the Dublin Core metadata element set in more depth.